Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today, since this video is supposed to be going out on Valentine's Day, I thought I'd play a deck that I really love, and that is Dark Depths combo. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I play various Dark Depths decks quite often. And on my previous video, I mentioned that I would give the straight up green-black version a go. So normally I would run the Turbo Depths with Mana Confluence and Gemstone Caverns and that sort of thing. But this time we're running 4 Verdant Catacombs, 2 Bayou, 1 Swamp and 1 Basic Forest. We actually have basic lands in our deck, which is not normally something you have in the sort of most typical Turbo Depths builds. So what is Turbo Depths? Unsurprisingly, it's making a 2020 using Dark Depths as fast as possible. So the 2 ways in which we can do that is either Thespian stage, which becomes a copy of it, but then this card doesn't enter with the counters on because it entered as a Thespian stage, so you automatically get the 2020 out of it. Or Vampire Hexmage, who can just remove all the counters from Dark Depths pretty much immediately and give you a 2020. So the ways in which we're trying to do this is by having a bunch of ways of finding lands. So we've got these 4 crop rotations. We've also got these 4 Sylvan Scrying, so this can find our mana sources that we need. And we've got 4 Spirit Guides and 4 Lotus Petals to pay for all our spells quickly. And then once our 2020 is in play, we then have 4 Not of This Worlds to protect it, as well as these 4 Pithing Needles, which can protect it at varying stages. So this can name a Wasteland, or it can name a Karakas. Either way, it can stop our Dark Depths token from getting bounced or destroyed or whatever, and it can protect our lands. Because of this, our land destruction land that we have in our deck is a Ghost Quarter, so we can use this around a Wasteland, around Pithing Needle on Wasteland. Final slots in this deck is made up by 6 discard spells. So we got 4 Thoughtseize and 2 Stifles. If you're playing the sort of Rainbow Turbo Depths build, there's a video on my channel from last week for that, you tend to have the Stifles in here instead. But by cutting the Stifles, we get 2 basic lands available in our deck. We also get the ability to have 4 Needles and 2 Duresses. Now, that could be worse than a Stifle, to be honest, but we're going to try it today because I haven't played just straight up green-black Turbo Depths for a long time, so I wanted to give it a whirl. Some of the things I'm concerned about in this build is getting this basic forest can prove troublesome sometimes if we need to hit black off something like Hexmage. We do have 4 Urborgs which can help that, but sometimes there's a non-zero amount of times that this can come up and cost you a game. Same with just having a swamp when you need to have your mana for things like crop rotation and stuff. So this isn't free, this isn't a strict upgrade of the other one either. Now, what this deck does allow us to do though, is fetch basics, so we can play around things like Blood Moon a little bit better. And we also have things that we can sometimes Ghost Quarter ourselves if we need to, as well as things like Assassin's Trophy, which is, I've weirdly played against a few copies of recently. Gives us a basic we can find, as well as a Bayou, which you can also find off of Assassin's Trophy, I believe. So that's the main deck. Sideboard wise, we're less colours, so we don't get things like Flusterstorm. So in order to compensate for that, we've got 2 Duress to add to our Disruption Suite, so we can have 8 discard spells to hopefully buy us enough time there. We've got 3 Steely Resolves, because this is one of the best cards you have against sort of like white-based removal on your creatures. You just say, nope, you can't remove my guy ever, by naming Avatar, which is Marillasia's creature type. And then you just got a Shrouded 2020 when it arrives, and then it should be very easy to sail through. This, in my experience, has been the best way of beating things like the Initiative with this sort of deck. For Leyline the Void, it's just the best piece of Graveyard Hate. Against Reanimator, it's not going to necessarily win you the game on its own, but it's going to buy you maybe 2, possibly 3 turns, sometimes more. Sometimes it can just win you the game eventually, but generally it's going to buy you turns, and turns equals 2020 for us, so that's pretty good. We have 3 Force of Vigor, because we've got a bunch of green cards to pitch to it as well, and casting this isn't necessarily the most difficult thing in the world. And it's just a good way of removing some problem permanents, like Blood Moon, for example. Then we have these. So in the other deck, we were running things like Dismember, which is a life loss which can sometimes be a problem, whereas Abrupt Decay is uncounterable, which is nice to begin with, and it can destroy any sort of permanent. So this can be like a Dismember for us. Now, yes, it costs 2 mana, but it can be a Dismember that we don't have to worry about being counterspelled if there's a creature like an opposition agent and our opponent has got blue spells to protect it with, like some of the Doomsday lists do. This can just sail right through them, get rid of it, and let us carry on with our game plan. It can also blow up Mages of the Moon and Blood Moon equally well. Now, There is a catch to this, obviously. This costs black and a green, whereas Dismember is colourless. Now, this is us relying somewhat on our forest and our swamp. We do have the Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal to help with this. So it's, again, it's not free. Like, as a card individually, it is better than Dismember. But for the things we want it for, there's definitely a trade-off here. So, again, which is why I tend to go on the rainbow builds, because even the sort of upgrades you get aren't necessarily upgrades, they're sort of sideways. So, yes, there is some upside to Abrupt Decay, but there's also some downside to it too. All right, I think that's enough talking about the deck. So before we jump into a league, let's do a quick plug. Like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing and they really help me out. And it's Valentine's Day, so why not show me some love, right? Give me some subscribers. All right, let's jump into a league with Green-Black Depths. This is an interesting hand. We do have the ability to make a 2020, but it's going to be a little bit slow. So crop rotation gets Yavimaya, then the Sylvan Scrying, but we do have 2 Thoughtseize and our opponent's mulligan to 6. So do we think it's worth trying to pick apart our opponent's hand and maybe have a crop rotation hang around spare? On the draw, I think we can keep this, but it's pretty sketchy. We are relying for a land to come off the top of our library for this to be a keeper. Now, we do have a lot of lands in our deck, and we have 2 turns to draw it. So statistically speaking, we should hit a land. So I'm going to keep. We have the turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 2. We can hold up our crop rotation with the Spirit Guide if we need to, in case of Wasteland or whatever. Ancient Tomb. Alright, we might just be getting initiatived. A White Plume Adventurer. Sure. Tricky. I believe we're expecting a ban announcement next week. So it might be the same week that this goes out. Alright. So our hand is looking a little bit rapey, and these Thoughtseizes look a lot worse in the face of White Plume, because 2 life is a lot to spend. Okay, so we did hit a land. So, and we know our opponent's not really messing with our mana sources, generally speaking, so they don't have Wastelands. So we could Thoughtseize them, or we could just concentrate on trying to get our combo through on our own. So we could Sylvan Scrying this turn, and then we could untap. So the earliest we make a 2020 here is turn 3. I think we play out the Verdant Catacombs. We can use our Spirit Guide to cast a Sylvan Scrying now, or we can try and crop rotate. But the crop rotate is a free spell, so it's probably best to cast a Sylvan Scrying now. So because our opponent's not going to mess with our mana base, we're just going to go and get a Bayou here. And I think we're just going to cast a Sylvan Scrying. We'll go and get the Dark Depths first. This means if we draw a Vampire Hexmage, we have a turn 2 2020, because we can crop rotate our Bayou into an Urborg, play the Dark Depths, play the Hexmage. So this gives us the best chance. Now if our opponent could just follow this up with another beefy initiative guy, then we might not even be able to race them with a turn 2 2020. Such is the power of initiative. Yep, they're just going for the big play there, sure. So they're going to bash us for 5, maybe make another guy, and then hit us for another 5, so we could be dead on turn 3. So turn 3 2020 is probably going to be too slow here, which is terrifying. There's another White Plume, an Elite Spellbinder. This is awkward for us, because it's going to take our crop rotation, I suspect, which is certainly annoying. But on the flip side, it's only a 3-power guy when it could have been another White Plume or something. So next turn, we take 10, 11, 12, 13. So we go to 1 on our next turn. So we can't use a fetch land, we can't Thoughtseize. Gonna be tough. We took the Sylvan Scrying, that's an error. Okay, interesting. We've still life in our chances yet. We can draw a Hexmage this turn. We did not draw a Hexmage, so we were certainly not rewarded for that. Yikes. So what are we doing here? If we have to play out our Dark Depths this turn. So the idea is that we can draw into either a... Well, we're probably just not going to be able to do it at all, right? Because we're going to take the 5 here, and then we take the 8. And then even if we have a blocker for next turn, it's not going to be enough. I think we're just dead here. Just initiatived right out. Sure, because it's only going to take 1 turn cycle. I'm just going to quickly play it out in case they show us any additional cards that we don't yet know, like a red source or anything like that, so we get a little bit more information. So what do we need to do now? An Elvish Spirit Guide. So we can make a 2020 now, but making a 2020 on turn 3 is not good enough. Maybe we can somehow trick our opponent into not attacking with their guys. Or maybe they will fire off a Source to Plowshares just instinctively or something and buy ourselves some time. We're basically trying to rely on our opponent making a mistake, but again, we might see some more cards from our opponent, which is always helpful. Green, crop rotate this away. We don't have any spicy lands that can keep us alive here either, so Thespian stage. So we're trying to force out like a mistake from our opponent here. I'm suspecting that they're not going to fall for it, but it's worth trying because this matchup is not going to use all of our clock, so we may as well give it a stab in the dark and hope our opponent maybe whiffs here and tries to kill our Merit Lage. Or they might try and style on us and show us a different spell. Looks like they're going to pay costs here, which is a bit farcical to me. Touch the Spirit Realm, sure. Okay, so we know they're a touch build, which means they're less likely to be the Naya or red builds because they struggle to fit in the touches sometimes. So, Steely Resolve is going to be very good in this matchup. Our Duresses are pretty bad here, so that's a pretty clean cut right there. And these Pithing Needles look pretty bad as well. So we could try some amount of Force of Vigor or Abrupt Decay here instead of Needles if we wanted to. I don't think Duress is necessarily where we want to be. Again, Abrupt Decay is very expensive. We don't really have the time. One of the other cards you can play in this matchup is the Snuff Out as a removal spell, but that importantly doesn't hit Opposition Agent, which is why we have the Decays here. So it's a case of, do I want Decays here or do I want a Duress? Maybe we want the Duresses just so we can poke at our opponent's hand and maybe take out a Mana Rock and slow them down just because we're on the play. That sounds pretty bad, to be honest, but I think it's better than having a Force of Vigor. Is there any sort of scary guys they might have that we want to remove, though? Maybe, if they've got, like, the Archon, so we should probably have the Abrupt Decays, in case they have the Archon of whatever it's called. The one that makes all my lands come in untapped. What does this hand do? It doesn't make a 2020. What does this hand do? It does a lot. So we Thoughtseize on turn 1, and then we 2020 on turn 2. We'll keep this. We have to pitch one of these cards. It's probably the Yavimaya. Let's see what our opponent's working with and how strong they are. They kept 7, which is a bit worrying. So they do have the Archon of Emeria, and they have 2 Chrome Moxes. So we could take a Chrome Mox and make a 2020 pretty sharpish. If we take an Archon of Emeria, they can't deploy both Chrome Moxes. Interesting. Because the Archon is going to be a bit of a thorn on our side. If they draw any white card, though, they can deploy the Archon. So I think we're supposed to take the Chrome Mox here. Now, if they draw a... we're going to play out the Lotus Petal in case we need to emergency crop rotate, but also in case they play a Thalia or something. So the way that we can come unstuck here is if our opponent has a Ancient Tomb. Okay, so there's a Chrome Mox. Are they going to imprint? Archon? Yep, one of their Archons, sure. They drew an Ancient Tomb off the top, because of course they did. Alright. Alright. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. So we can crop rotate this away now for an Urborg. Then we untap. And yeah, we're kind of in a bit of a bind here. So our opponent just happened to top deck an Ancient Tomb, which is a bit unfortunate for us there. It was the worst case scenario that I mentioned, but here we are. A Thespian's stage. So we only get to cast one spell a turn, which is quite an important piece of text here. And our non-basic lands come in tapped. So we can play out the Thespian stage. It's better to try for the Hexmage combo because it uses less of our resources, so it's easier to then Thespian stage afterwards. So I think we Dark Depths here, tapped. And then we can just play out our Hexmage and make it that way. We don't need to do the Urborg here because we have these 2 mana sources. That seems fine to me. Not ideal, but fine. I would have liked to have lived in a situation where I could have held up a crop rotation for Sejiri Steppe, because our opponent can draw something good. And then we pass a turn. Let's see what our opponent has for this. Now, they can chump block with the Archon of Emeria for a turn and look for a removal, but we get to crop rotate once we untap. Alright. So if they're playing a spell, that means they cannot cast a removal spell this turn. Because they only get one spell a turn. So they get the initiative. Now what they could do is they could attack with the Archon of Emeria, trying to get me to block with it, so that they can then remove my Dark Depths now, but that seems really silly to me. Our opponent's got 2 cards that we've seen this planes, and they've just gone and got themselves another planes. Is that right? Well, they can't cast a spell this turn, so we may as well remove the counters from this. So we have 2 choices here. Let's just remove that for now. We can either go for a crop rotation now to give our guy protection from white and try and win the game now, or because we know our opponent's hand, we can just save this so we at least have 1 removal spell. One protection, just in case they have a removal spell now. Because if they have a removal spell now, we can certainly lose the game. We're going to play out our Thespian stage. Like, they've got 1 white up, so if they have a plow or something, that can get us. So we're just going to attack and see if they put their guy under the bus. We have the ability to play through removal, and we're not under enough threat that we have to worry about that. So I think this is the safer route. Now, if they play the 3-1 guy that takes a card from our hand, that would be pretty bad for us here. Because if they've got that and a removal spell, then we're toast. But if they had a removal spell, it was right to hold the crop rotation back. But if they have that 3-1 guy but not a removal spell, then we're also okay. Let's see where they put these cards from the scry. 1 top, 1 bottom. Okay, that's a little worrying. It might just be that they have a removal spell, which we can beat 1 removal spell. Okay, it wasn't a Karakas, so that's good. Archon of Emeria. Okay, that buys them another turn. Interesting. So we're in the exact same conundrum as before. We know they've got a Cavern of Souls in hand. They've got 1 other card. Because they only have 1 other card in their hand, so they've got Cavern of Souls plus a mystery card. They have no white mana available. They cannot cast Solitude because they don't have the ability to pitch anything to it. So this is free to just Sejiri Steppe. Give protection from white. Yeah, so there we go. So we played around the removal spell. Even if they did have a removal spell, they didn't leave it up there. So, but they could have tapped their mana differently and taken the 2 here, and it would have been a better play because I don't care about the life total as long as it's in chunks of 20. So if they'd have used their Ancient Tomb this turn, they would have been representing a plow, which could have been useful. Alright, so I'm glad we have these Abrupt Decays in for those annoying little guys. And yeah, I think this is about as good as we're doing here, so let's go again. We need a fast hand, generally. Well, we need a hand that does something. This hand doesn't do anything, so this is quite an easy mulligan. Our opponent's also mulliganed to 6 so far. This next hand of ours is not great. We can do the slower combo with some protection. I don't think this is good enough. We can get better hands. Yikes. So this has protection. This has protection, removal, and we can go and find the thing. Is this good enough? It is a bit slow. I think we have to keep this. And we bottom 1 of our scryings. And then this is the tricky choice. We can't get rid of our lands. This scrying gives us the combo, so we can't really give that up. Do we want to try and play around removal, or do we want to remove their guy? I think those are the choices we have here. That's hard. That's a hard choice. I think we just have to try and race them, rather than having that removal spell. So make a turn 1 Archon, we almost certainly lose the game. Cavern of Souls. So this is more difficult for them to play something big this turn. It will require multiple mana rocks of like petals and moxes. Okay, this could just be a Thalia. No, Thalia's not cleric, is it? It's a soldier. A chalice for 1. Now that, amusingly, doesn't affect my hand right now. So that's good news. Okay. We have a turn 3 here. So I think we just play this out. And we play a Steely Resolve. Right, so when we get our Marit Lage, even though they wouldn't be able to Swords of Plowshares it, they can't Karakas it, they can't touch the Spirit Realm it, they can't Solitude it. And in 2 turns' time, we get our Dark Depths. And our opponent did not make a turn 1 threat. Oh, wow. Were they relying on that Chalice to win them the game? Maybe they got a load of Solitudes in hand. Okay, so we'll play this one out. And we have a choice here if we want to Sylvan Scrying or not. I think we're supposed to, because it's more or less free here. So we've already got a rebuy here, so we probably just want something that can interact with our opponent, or something that can give our creature the unblockability when the time comes. That's probably good. Or we could go and just get an Urborg here so we can cast black spells. But I think we just want the Sejiri Steppe here. It's either the Sejiri Steppe or the Boseiju. It's not the easiest choice, to be honest. I think we'll take a Boseiju. Because they don't have a threat right now, we're not super racing them. Because we make a 2020 next turn. So if they make a 3-3 this turn, we don't really care about that. Because we make a 2020 that's got Shroud. Lotus Petal, sure. So the Archon could be a bit of an issue for us. It's going to slow us down a turn. Okay, if they just play nothing, that's very good for us. Our opponent's hand must be stacked with, like, Solitude. That's the only thing that makes sense here. So we have a Boseiju in case we need an emergency. But we have a 2020 incoming into our opponent's face. And we've got another Dark Depths, so we can probably get another one out of it if we need to, but I don't know how they're going to remove it with a Steely Resolve in play. My opponent thinks we had a God Hand. Not particularly. It's quite a slow one, to be honest. Like, this is a turn 4 kill. Our deck should be aiming quicker than that most of the time. Alright, so that was a good match. I think that was more to do with our opponent keeping a bad hand because they didn't do anything in the whole game. They should have mulliganed heavier like we did. Alright, let's go to round 2. So this hand, we have 3 initial mana. So we have black, black, and then we crop rotate into Dark Depths and make a turn 1 2020. Turn 1 2020s feel good to me. Leyline in the Void. Okay, hopefully our opponent's just some mono black deck and they're not going to make... They're just going to make a threat on turn 1, like a Doughty Voidwalker or something. That would be... Now, they could just kill us on turn 1 with a Helm of Obedience kill. Oh, is that what's happening here? Khan the Great Creator. This actually does slow down our kill because we needed the Lotus Petal to actually give us mana here. So that's a little bit awkward. Only slows us down by 1 turn. So they've gone and got a Lotus Petal. Interesting. Oh, okay. How does this change things? Unfortunately, this is green mana. So getting black, black off of this is not really something we can do. Interesting. I think we just play out our Verdant Catacombs. And then next turn, we can make our 2020. Now, our opponent does get the chance of doing something with a Khan to interfere with it. So we have the Sylvan Scrying to then go and find a Boseiju. What is our opponent doing here? Helm of Obedience. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they have a Helm of Obedience. Do they have a mana to crack it with? Does not look like they do. Okay. So we need to Sylvan Scrying for Boseiju here. Now, can we do all of this together? So, crop rotation for Urborg. Play Dark Depths. Make Vampire Hexmage. No, that doesn't work. So we need to put 2 mana into Sylvan Scrying and then 2 mana into Boseiju. Interesting. Just trying to work out if there's another way of doing it. Because Dark Depths is the Marilage is a legendary creature. So if we turn this into Urborg and play this, we play out the Hexmage, then we get this. But then we've only got 2 mana to activate our thing. So that's not good enough, is it? So what we're doing here is, I think we play out our Bayou, crack this. Gonna get do we need another Bayou? Our opponent's unlikely to be playing Wasteland, and we're already in. We need black mana for next turn. So we will cast a Sylvan Scrying. We'll get this Boseiju who endures. Now our opponent might try and activate the Helm, or they might suspect we have Elvish Spirit Guides. And we can just hold up this Boseiju for as long as we need to. And if they don't try and win on our turn, we can always Boseiju them if they make like an Ensnaring Bridge or something. So we can Boseiju the Leyline away. If our opponent draws a Doughty Voidwalker, that's going to be real bad for us. That's the way this gets punished, and maybe we shouldn't have let them have that chance to punish us. Okay, they're going to turn one of their artifacts into a creature. They're not going to turn anything into a creature. They could have turned their Helm of Obedience in. Oh, that's so annoying. The one line that we said that actually beats us, the one top deck. Is there a way that we can beat this? Both of these do the combo. They've got 1 up. Oh, we outplayed ourselves. We should have had that game. That's entirely on me. I should have just smashed it when we had the chance. Oh, that's so annoying. Right, we've got these Pithing Needles, which are going to be good. These Force of Vigors look like they're going to be pretty good too. Duresses and Thoughtseizes are fine. Not of This World is going to be bad here because they're going to be trying to make us make us sacrifice our guy rather than targeting with removal. Would we like another Duress over a Pithing Needle? I think probably, because we need to pick apart the discard removal. Oh, I can't believe I misplayed that one so horribly. I got cute thinking I could waste their turn, but they just got me with the Daffy Voidwalker. I could have played around that and I didn't, so that's annoying and it's entirely on me. What does this hand do? We have Duress on turn 1. We can't ever use this. Well, we can use this crop rotation, but it will cost us our Boseiju from hand. This is a turn 3 Dark Depths with Duress backup, though. That's probably okay. I think we keep this. So annoyed at that. Alright. Urborg. Duress, our opponent. Thoughtseize him. Opposition Agent. I think we have to take the Ritual here. I think the Ritual is the way things go worse for us. I think we're going to lose this game, to be honest. Oh, what a punt. If I'd taken a bit longer thinking about it and less time talking about it, I think I would have made the right play in the last game. Right, so there's a Chromox. So I know they have the Opposition Agent now. So this is an interesting choice. Okay, they put the him underneath it, played out the tomb. Now they're just playing out the Opposition Agent. Sure. This is going to be very difficult to get off the board, but we already have our Dark Depths. Play this. I think we'll play Pithing Needle. Khan, the Great Creator, I believe is the one. Let's name that one. Because if I take the Opposition Agent there, then we get Thoughtseize and Hymned. And that can take out our Dark Depths, which is a real issue for us. So this is the Thoughtseize coming in, which is probably going to hit our Force of Vigor. And because of the way that we're lined up right now, we're just going to blow up their thing. We've made them waste their black mana on it this turn. So now we've got 8 draws that win us the game. Okay, so drew a castle, locked away, so still have black mana. We got 8 draws that win us the game, which is something. A Verdant Catacombs. So this is pretty bad in the face of what we've got going on here, but it does tap for black mana because of our Urborg. So we'll play this out. So we can start removing counters the slow way, but that's not going to get us there in time. Why is this card still in our opponent's deck is a big question to me. I guess they didn't know what we were playing actually, did they, to be fair to them. We just kind of did nothing and died. So actually, no, that's fine. They want to have a flexible removal spell in there. I understand. Slow boat to China. Alright, another Verdant Catacombs. Not the one. We'll play it out though. So what are we doing here? If we deploy another land, we can remove 2 counters a turn, but that's still not going to race this Opposition Agent, I don't believe. So there is that. Again, we have 8 draws that win us the game. Probably should have boarded in some Abrupt Decays for the Opposition Agent. Okay, so this guy's gone now. Shoulder of the Apocalypse. That certainly ends the game pretty quick. Alright, deck. Force of Vigor. We can't really cast. So we lose 2 life this turn. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we die on the next turn. Yep, we just didn't get there. We punted the first game. And then we just got smashed by the Opposition Agent there. Maybe we're supposed to Thoughtseize the Opposition Agent. But we definitely lose our crop rotation if we do that. And obviously, as you've seen, we just drew nothing anyway. So I think they had us coming and going. This matchup, when I've been playing the mono black deck, I preferred to be on the mono black side because you have good disruption in terms of like discard effects to pick stuff off. You have the Opposition Agent to shut down the tutor effects, and you have Sudden Edict to kill the Merit Lage. So it's very difficult to overcome all that for the poor little depths player. So even though we did punt the first game, I think we can not be too upset about losing this match overall. But I'm still going to be annoyed at myself because why not? Let's go on to game 3, round 3. We have a fan of the channel. I don't think we can keep this hand because we can't find a Dark Depths with it. So let's mulligan. This is kind of similar problem. Alright, this is good to me. We'll keep this. So 2 cards have got to go on the bottom. We have to make a prediction here. So we probably get rid of the Verdant Catacombs. Or do we actually? We play the Verdant Catacombs out and get a swamp. We can duress our opponent. So we don't need to worry about the wasteland potentially. So if we put the Bayou away and the Needle, we can play turn 2 Hexmage and make our combo. Alright. Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal. This looks like potentially initiative. Sure, I think we beat the initiative with this hand. Now that's not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we are kind of getting... If we draw another Lotus Petal, we get to make a 20-20 this turn, which would be nice. But I think we're probably just on the Duress our opponent plan. See what they have. So now we can play out the Urborg because our opponent won't be messing with our mana due to the deck they're playing. We can save this in case we need a green source later on down the line for like a crop rotation. So let's Duress our opponent, see if they've got anything. They probably won't have anything with this Duress, to be honest. Archromaria, Elite Spellbinder. Okay. So they are the red-white build. So we win this game on the draw if we're on the play, but we might lose it because we're on the draw because this Elite Spellbinder is going to cost us a turn of our Vampire Hexmage. Or if they play the Archon of Emeria, that doesn't actually change our clock. So let's see what they play here. I bet they're going to look at our hand instead. That's probably what I would do. Yep. Oh, why didn't they just play a White Plume Adventurer? That would have been slightly better for us. Right, so our Vampire Hexmage got whisked away over here and costs 4 mana now, which is a lot of mana. So this is sad, unfortunately. Alright, what have we got? Another Hexmage? Another Hexmage. What a lucky son of a gun. Alright. Lol, 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 lol. Sure. I believed in the heart of the cards, maybe. Okay, so they can forge up this turn. What do they want to do? I would like our opponent to make a land drop now, so I know that the Karakas isn't coming. I don't know how many Karakases they can run in a red-white mana base. Okay, so they played a mountain, so no Karakas. That's good. They've got 3 cards in hand. So we have to make the 20-20 here, because otherwise they chump block and they get us on the backswing. This is unfortunate if they have the one card that gets us here, which is Touch of the Spirit Realm. We don't really have the luxury of playing around that, because if we attack, they kill us back with a 5-5 on the following turn. They drew the plow. All right. Bit awkward for us. They also get to follow this up with another White Plume. Oh, no, they don't, because it's the red mana, sorry. All right. Do I play a an Elvish Spirit Guide to buffer our life total? I don't know if we do. I don't know if things are that dire yet. I don't think it's worth binning the Lotus Petal for it. So I think we just have to keep it back in hand. If they play an Archon of Emeria, we crack our Verdant Catacombs and get ourselves probably a Bayou. So that way we're more likely to draw basics that come in untapped underneath it. Seasoned Dungeoneer, okay. I did get lucky and draw the Hexmage, and they get lucky and draw the Plow. So 1 for 1. Seasoned Dungeoneer is pretty bad for us, but it's not that much more different to the White Plume. Alright, what have they got here? A whole bunch of stuff. Elite Spellbinder. Alright, you can close that. You've got everything. That's fine. So we're going to lose our Elvish Spirit Guide. I don't really care enough about that going. So how much is this? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 this turn. And then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we are dead on our next turn. On their next turn, sorry. However, I'm not unhappy with how this matchup plays out, I don't think, because of how good Steely Resolve is and the fact they don't mess with our mana base. If we'd have been on the been on the play for this game, we would have won it. Like, we can do our thing. I don't think this is going to be enough because of Seasoned Dungeoneer. But our opponent has a chance to make a mistake here, because they can put their Seasoned Dungeoneer trigger on any of their creatures. So they could put it on the 7 power guy, so guaranteed 7 damage. And then if I block the 6/6, then I take 6. Oh, maybe we were right. Maybe being the very operative word here. We know they've got a White Plume, actually, so we're on 11. This is tight. This is a very tight game, this one. If they've got a Seasoned Dungeoneer, we lose, I think, because the 2 biggest ones hit us. What have you got for us? Okay, so that hits us for 5. Right. We're making a real game of this, even though our opponent's been doing all this broken stuff. Again, we have got a bit lucky drawing some of our things, but so is our opponent, so I think it's a wash so far. Let's see. What are you attacking with? Just that one that we can't block. I see. Let's see what's on top of your library. Swords to Plowshares. Yikes. Okay, we still have a route to winning this game, though. If we draw Sejiri Steppe, or Crop Rotation, or Sylvan Scrying, because the card they reveal goes to their top of their deck, not into their hand. Right, we've got 8 draws that win us the game here. Not of This World is not one of them. Is there a way that we can trick our opponent into not winning the game next turn? No, there isn't. Let's see if they make a mistake here. I imagine they're going to block with their 3-1. Sure. Okay, so I would like these Steely Resolves, please. I would also like these Abrupt Decays for those silly little guys. Dresses, not so hot here. I don't really like Thoughtseize that much. Pithing Needle, not so great either. Thoughtseize on the play is good. It's pretty bad on the draw, so this is probably what we're looking at for the on the play. Karakas might have text against them. Bojuka Bog doesn't have text, so if we wanted to cut a land, we could cut up Bojuka Bog for a Needle to put on the... Well, we could do it for Needle or we could do it for a Duress. Let's have a Duress, I think. Alrighty, so we have turn 1 Duress, turn 2 2020. And we can also go and fetch the thing to push through a blocker. So this seems alright. Now we're going to dress them, we're going to see a Solitude, and then we're going to be sad. Hopefully our opponent mulligans a little bit. The initiative deck generally, I think it probably on average is a 6-card opening hand deck. Alright, they kept their 7 though. Let's go for this, and I hate, the dress is not very good here, generally speaking, but it might have some text. Okay, they have one answer to Marit Lage. Let's take that answer. Pretty happy about that Duress right now. If we can draw a crop rotation on our next draw, then we are in a great place. So there's the Chromox. It's going to imprint the Spirit Guide, I imagine. Unless they're just going to try and play out the White Plume on turn 1. They could play out the Fable to give themselves more looks at an answer. That's perfectly reasonable too. Caves of Chaos Adventure underneath it. Okay, so this is Spirit Guide into White Plume or Fable. They're going for Fable because they realise that they are the control, I guess, in this matchup right now. Okay, so we have a Dark Depths. That's a good place to be. Black, black. Let's make the guy. Or the gal, shall we say. So this turn we get to make a 2020. If this doesn't work, we can Sylvan Scrying for a Thespian stage and go again. So they have to probably discard 2 cards if they don't have an answer right now anyway. So discarded this White Plume Adventure, sure. Our creature has first strike, so we're going to block here. Because we got another one in hand, I think we're just going to go for it now and say, do you have it? Because we can rebuild and do it again in a couple of turns. Okay, they didn't have it. Excellent. So, the Duresses on the play, definitely, on the draw, definitely feel worse than on the play. The Thoughtseizes I'm also not a massive fan of. I think we probably want a Pithing Needle back in to name touch the Spirit Realm here. I don't really like these Thoughtseizes too much. But I also don't want to have a whole bunch of these Pithing Needles in either. Is 2 Pithing Needles enough? I think 2 is probably fine. Alright, let's go for this one. If we'd have won the die roll, I think we'd be alright. Our opponent's got a 61 card deck. Interesting. What have we got here? This is too slow to be useful. And we don't really get to cast our spells. This is an easy mulligan. Okay, we have a Steely Resolve. We have a turn 3. This... No, we need 1 more mana for that. But that's fine. We can keep this. And then we get rid of a Not of This World. Because we're probably just playing out the Steely Resolve. So our opponent can clock us underneath this. On the play, I think our opponent would struggle to clock us. But that's not the situation we're in. Now, we can certainly draw cards that completely change the dynamic of how we're doing. Okay, so they got a Karakas. They've kept this hand based on the Karakas, which is good news for us. We will play out this Verdant Catacombs. We will not burn our Elvish Spirit Guide yet. An Ancient Tomb. An Elite Spellbinder. This is an interesting one. This is going to take our Steely Resolve. Sure. We also have Pithing Needles that can name Karakas. Now, they might think of taking the crop rotation here. And just saying, you have to try and draw one of your combo. You have to try and draw your Dark Depths. Which I think is also fine. Now, crop rotation for 3 is a little bit more manageable than Steely Resolve for 4. But because we have the Not of This World, we'll get an idea of how much removal they have in their hand by what they take, I think. If they take our Steely Resolve, they probably have a removal spell to go alongside their Karakas. Okay, took the crop rotation. Interesting. A Chromox. What are they imprinting here? Sylvan Spirit Guide. Over to us. An Urborg. Interesting. So, try out the Urborg this turn. Go and get ourselves a Bayou. Cast this Steely Resolve. Naming Avatar. So we can crop rotate our opponent's next end step. and then untap and make a 20/20 end of their next end step after that. So it depends how bad this turn is for us, really. An Elite Spellbinder. Not that exciting. It can hit our Elvish Spirit Guide, which is a little bit annoying, but we weren't planning on using that for the next 2 turns anyway. If they exile our Elvish Spirit Guide, we can't ever use the mana ability. So that is more like a hard discard spell against it. So that might be what they opt for here. The Abrupt Decay can clear a blocker, so that's maybe something they're interested in doing. Yeah, okay, so there's the Abrupt Decay. A Boseiju. Do we care about the Boseiju? Not particularly. So this turn, we're probably crop rotating our opponent's end step for the Dark Depths token, for the Dark Depths. And then the turn after that, we can make a Thespian, we can copy a Thespian stage. So we take 6 here. I think that's fine. Sacrifice this Bayou. Okay, they could have had that Aven Mind Sensor card, but they did not, so that's good for us. A Thoughtseize. Do I care about Thoughtseize? I don't think so. Do I care? Do I want to play this Boseiju as a land or not? I think we do play it as a land. We already have the Steely Resolve. We could Thoughtseize our opponent here, because we still get to make our thing, and we can't cast this anyway. So I think, considering they don't have any... Wait, I think we will Thoughtseize them. Let's just see what they're working with. Chrome Mox and a Lotus Petal. We'll take the Lotus Petal. So we know our opponent doesn't have a lot going on here. This is going to be difficult for our opponent to overcome, I suspect. Too many exiled things here. Let's shrink these down a little bit. There we go. One apiece. So we can make a 20/20 and block if they attack. If they don't attack, we can slug through their guys. And also, we get to cast Abrupt Decay on the next turn, so they can't attack with one guy and leave one guy back. So they got to draw something good. Alright, interesting. They're going for it, so we didn't come here to not do this. Shroud Flying Indestructible. What have you got for us, opponent? Archon of Emeria. Sure. So if we draw a mana source, we kill this. And then we kill them. We drew a mana source. Sure. Wait. Our land comes in tapped, doesn't it? That's the problem here. Interesting. So we can attack and force them... Do I think our opponent can deal us 2 damage from nowhere is the question. If we hold this back on blocks... So if we hold this back on blocks, how do we lose the game? If our opponent plays another creature, another flying creature, and they attack us with these 2, we block 1 and then take 2, and we go to 3. And the next turn, we just Abrupt Decay them. I think we just hold back for a turn, and we can force the chump block next turn. I think that's right. We know our opponent's got a Chrome Mox in hand, so our opponent is living off the top. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Okay, so we can force the block this turn on their guy. Urborg. Does that change anything? No. Interesting. Our opponent gets 2 looks at cards next turn. So we attack. I think we should have attacked last turn. Alright, so they're going to put their Arc of Emeria under the bus, and then we blow up their Elite Spellbinder. Oh no, they're putting their Elite Spellbinder under the bus. That's better for us. They should put the Archon in, because this at least represents lethal damage that forces the Abrupt Decay out of our hand. Yeah, if we'd have attacked last turn, instead of playing it KG, we would have been in a better spot. So we have 4 mana, we can cast this. Let's see what our opponent does. We have a Knot of this World in case something really random happens. So they're going to be discarding 2 cards, I imagine, here. One of them probably being this Chrome Mox. Palace Jailer and Chrome Mox, sure. This just makes it only 2 expensive, right? Yeah, okay. I guess Plains. Prismatic Ending on this. That still doesn't do it because I have Knot of this World. Are they going to attack with both their guys? They are, sure. So yeah, green, green, black, green. So this puts us to 3. I don't think our opponent's going to be playing Lightning Bolts in their deck. That'll be very weird. Now if they do and they kill us with it, then that's a shame. Boo. Okay, I think we got it. So we got the match there. I definitely think we should have attacked the turn before. I think we were worried about stuff that it was so unlikely we shouldn't have been worried about it, really. Some sort of like haste guy or something. So I think we played a little bit too cagey there. We very nearly got punished, but we didn't. Steely Resolve has been a great boon to this deck, and I'm pretty glad I recently ordered 2 more. So I've got 3 that I can play on my sideboard in paper. All right, let's go to round 4. All right, we're into round 4 now. Our opponent's kept 7. We've got a turn 3 2020 with a Duress and a potentially a Bojuka Bog. This is kind of slow, but I think we should still keep this. If it's initiative, we can win the sideboard games anyway. A Mountain, a Chrome Mox. Alrighty then, are we just going to get Blood Mooned? What did they put in there? Bone Crusher Giant. Chalice of the Void. So I guess we're not going to Duress turn 1 anymore. Not of this world. Not having green mana could definitely come back to bite us. Guess we play out this Urborg. So this might be one of the matchups where having the 2 basics in is supposed to be helpful. So we'll see if it is or not. Shadow Skull smashing into Fabled Mirrorbreaker. That's fine. Okay. So this feels like a red prison deck rather than some sort of painted deck because you tend not to see Bone Crushers and Chalices in those decks. Interesting. We can Sylvan Scrying this turn for a Forest if we want to. Which is not a play that I hate. Because our opponent is definitely demonstrating some of the things they can do over there. Seems kind of medium, but I think this makes sense. Let's get one of these. So we could just get the Boseiju in case of Blood Moon. So we're more likely to draw a green source than we are to draw the Boseiju. So I think we just get the Boseiju. And this way we can play around Blood Moon potentially. We get a 2020 next turn with protection in case they have something that can actually hit it. So they discarded just 1 card. Just 1 card doesn't seem like a lot to discard, so I'm not happy about that. If we draw a Petal or something, that'd be great. Just like to have the little bit of protection. Caves of Chaos Adventure. That does not race to 2020. So I think we are okay here. There's a Mountain. A green source. We're not going to play that now though. We're going to make a 2020 instead. That's the more fun play. And the objectively correct one. You never have to worry about Not of This World getting hit by a Chalice, at least. You never see Chalices for 7, so that's good. I suspect our opponent goes down the Scry route here, since we're representing a 2020. There it is. Do you have 2 removal spells? They probably only think they have 1, so they only need 1. Dead and Gone is a main deck card sometimes. We don't have to worry about Mirrorbreaker shenanigans this turn either, because it comes in with Summoning Sickness. Lotus Petal, sure. Given the fact that we have the Not of This World, I think we are just going to make it now in combat. Okay, they have conceded to our 2020. So, I would not like to get Blood Mooned. I would not like to get Blood Mooned. There is an option for removing something like Duress because of Chalices. I don't think Pithing Needle is going to be the most useful thing here, so that's an obvious one to go. The Not of This World is not that exciting, to be honest. And if they have Trinispheres, we're going to feel a bit silly with these Not of the World sitting in our hand, whereas if we have these Steely Resolves, at least we can deploy them and they'll just be there. Now, there is an option to board in this other Duress instead of a Not of This World, which is probably better. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I should be worried about Pithing Needle-wise. I guess they could have a Planeswalker, so I wouldn't mind having a Pithing Needle in the deck, so at least I've got an out to it if I want it. The Bojuka Bog, probably not useful. That can just be a Pithing Needle. The Karakas might be if they've got that Hasty Legend thing. I can't remember what it's called, Layla maybe. So I think we're going to submit like this. So this hand has mana to get us out of... has mana to cast our stuff. But it does require us to draw one of 12 cards over the course of a draw step. I think we can do slightly better. This has an answer to Blood Moon. It has stuff to go off on turn 3 and an answer to Blood Moon. That's probably pretty good. I guess we pitch this excess Urborg. We will need to draw a land at some point. Actually, no, we don't need to. We've got Sylvan Scrying. I think Chrome Mox, sure. What have you got for us? Nothing. Interesting. We'll play out our Verdant Catacombs first, so we can go and get a forest if we need one. Blood Moon. Mages of the Moon. Let's get a basic forest. Do we get a basic forest or do we get a basic swamp? Because we have more... No, we get a basic forest. We can use the crop rotation to get a basic swamp, can't we? Sejiri Steppe. That's not that helpful, is it? So what do we want here? I think we're playing out Urborg, and then we Sylvan Scrying for Dark Depths. And then we just need to draw one of our Abrupt Decays. We just need to draw 2 of our Abrupt Decays. Alright, This might prove a little bit more challenging. Now, these things don't represent the scariest of clocks, truth be told. A Pithing Needle. Do I care about Pithing Needle? So we'll play this on out now, because this will come in with no counters now. So, do you want Pithing Needle on Karn? I don't think so. I think we just pass the turn. Do we draw an Abrupt Decay before our opponent kills us with these Mages of the Moons? That's the question. Wowzers. Okay, a lot of Mages of the Moons. An Elvish Spirit Guide. I'm going to cast my Elvish Spirit Guide as a creature. And then I think we'll play out this Verdant Catacombs. I would very much like to trade off with your Mages of the Moon. So if we draw Vampire Hexmages, they're going to be difficult to cast. But they have first strikes. They can beat Mages of the Moon in combat. Now our opponent's going to have some other stuff going on. Okay, just a Shadow Skull Smashing. This is a pretty quick clock our opponent's representing here. It's going to be difficult to deal with all three of these. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. So we've got one more draw step. Is that relevant? I don't really know. Let's just play this one out and pass. Play another one. Play another Mages of the Moon. A Vampire Hexmage that we can't cast. Yeah, I think you got us. Right. Mages of the Moon, slightly harder to beat than Blood Moon. They did have 3 of them, which did certainly stifle our amount of outs we had there. I think on the play, I would rather have these extra Duresses. Our opponent probably has like 8 Blood Moon effects at this point. So I think this is what we're going with. Another card that you can play would be Echoing Decay, I think it is, which is -2/-2 to a creature and all creatures with the same name. Alright, we have the answer. We're going to keep this. We are missing our Dark Depths. But we have the answer to a Magus of the Moon. And our deck is entirely designed to find a... What have we got here? Alright, we just take the Magus here. That's an easy one. Yeah, so our deck is entirely designed to find Dark Depths. So I'm relatively okay with the idea of having that. If we get one more turn, we get to put this Verdant Catacombs into play. Chalice? Sure, I drew a Chalice at turn. We can get rid of that if we need to. A Dark Depths, you say? We're going to play this out in case we need our forest. That is the smart move to me. There's Mountain. Is this Seasoned Pyromancer? What does this do? Discard 2 cards and draw 2 cards. So they could do this and make 2 1/1s. Oh no, they need double red for that, don't they? So they can pitch their Spirit Guide to do that, which is what they've done. And then they're playing the Seasoned Pyromancer. What are they going to discard here? Shatter Skull Smashing and another Seasoned Pyromancer. Sure, so we don't have any of the cards in their hand. Alright. Sylvan Scrying. Interesting. So we will play out our Thespian stage. We will crack this to go and get ourselves a basic forest. We'll cast this Sylvan Scrying to go and get a Boseiju, which is a little bit of extra insurance in case we need it. One of the things you can run in this deck is a Dryad Arbor, so that you can get around sack effects by just having it in play. I don't think that's very good, personally. And there's also a card that you can Sylvan Scrying for to pitch to Force of Vigor, but again, I don't think that's very good. What have you got for us? Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Sure. So we make a 20/20 next turn. We have to dodge Dead and Gone is the one thing. Take 4 here. We could have played this game to make a 20/20 a turn earlier, but we played it so we could go around Blood Moon because we didn't have something like an Elvish Spirit Guide in hand. Hopefully we won't get punished for that. Our opponent is Scrying. Let's see where they put these. 2 on the bottom. Okay. I suspect our opponent does not have an answer for this. We'd ideally like our opponent to play a spell pre-combat. Let's see what they flip off the Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Chrome Mox. So this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do we just take the 9? There's that spell that deals you 2, like 3 times. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have to make it in case they've got that. And keep them on without counters on. We have a 20/20. We block their guy. Yeah, Fiery Confluence, I think, is the one. So if they drop that, they could dome us for enough to kill us if we just let that all through. So I think the correct play is to make the 20/20 there. If they have Dead and Gone, it's an instant, and it's always going to beat us anyway. If they have nothing, then we're okay. If they had the Dead Gone, they probably bounce the Marit Lage before I go to blocks. Caves of Chaos Adventurer. They're going to goad my guy. Stash. Okay. Chromox. Okay, they're just playing out their hand. They're going to imprint something on it. They did not imprint. Interesting. Maybe they've got white in their mana, but they can't. Okay, I was thinking maybe they got white and they got some sort of Source to Plowshares type thing, I don't know. I was thinking about blowing up the Force of Vigor in these 2 permanents, so that if I draw a crop rotation, I can use it on the following turn, because I can only Force of Vigor then, but I guess I could just use the Abrupt Decay to do that. Alright, so we won that match pretty handily. I don't think, as a general rule, Blood Moon decks aren't particularly good against Turbo Depths, because you come in under them quite often, and a single Megas of the Moon doesn't stop you. Now 3 Megas of the Moon is going to cause you trouble, but a Blood Moon doesn't do a lot because Force of Vigor exists. Yeah, alright, let's go to the final match and see if we can get the 4-1. We won the die roll for the final round. Not a bad place to be. I don't like this hand though. We don't have the way of making a 2020, so let's mulligan. This hand makes a 2020 on turn 2 with protection, right? So this gets a Bayou. We Thoughtseize our opponent. Next turn we play the Dark Depths. We crop rotate the Catacombs, the Bayou into Thespian stage, and then we funnel these 2 mana into it. So, oh wait, we don't get to keep all of these cards actually, do we? We lose one of these cards. So I think we have to get rid of the Knot of this World because we need all the other stuff to do it, and the Thoughtseize should hopefully do enough. I get punished by Wasteland here. Cephalid Illusionist, Flooded Strand. So we make a turn 2, then they have a turn 2. So we're taking the Force of Will. That probably doesn't fill our opponent with a lot of joy. There's the Azure Saga. And Ether Vial. Sure, so we know what they drew. Now we can do this now because we know our opponent's entire hand. So we go and get ourselves Thespian stage. Do Cephalid Breakfast decks play land destruction stuff? I see no Wastelands or Karakases in our future. Now, the one way we can get punished is, I think we don't have to worry about counter spells now. So I think if they play a Narcomoeba, we can get in trouble that way. Or if they draw the little guy, the Nomads. If they draw the Nomads, they can kill us this turn. That's how we lose this game. I think, is our turn 3 kill good enough to beat their turn 2 kill? If that's what they have. The answer is no, obviously. So, do they have it? A Flood Strand. They're cracking it. Here comes the Illusionist, maybe? A Narcomoeba. Yeah. This is the other draw that wins it for them. Potentially. Now we get a chance here. We also get to Ghost Court away the as a Saga. Thespian stage becomes Dark Depths. Dark Depths becomes Marriage. So we do get to kill this. Or a Sejiri Steppe wins it for us too. Sure, so we go to attacks. They block with their Narcomoeba so they don't die. You beautiful little Ghost Quarter. So yeah, so the draws that won it for our opponent there were Nomads or it was Nomads or the Narcomoeba stops us from winning. The Nomads wins in the game, the Narcomoeba stops them. So I guess I'd rather take the Narcomoeba than the Nomads. But now they can draw a bunch of things and still win the game here. They can Ponder or Brainstorm. So we're a little bit up against it. But we've done our thing. We've interacted with our opponent twice with a Thoughtseize and a Ghost Quarter. So there's a Cephalid Illusionist. Is my guy good enough? So now they're also getting to stages where they can draw a Teferi. We can't actually cast that because we've got no mana sources. I don't know the way my opponent hasn't conceded yet. There's no thing they've drawn another Narcomoeba. Oh, have you really drawn another Narcomoeba? You have drawn another Narcomoeba. Yikes. Okay. It's tough out there. It's real tough out there. Running Narcomoebas off of natural draws. They got one Narcomoeba left in the deck. They've got Shuko now. They've got Nomads and Core. They can't Wizard Cycle for an answer though. Okay, we did get it. Jesus! Oh, had to work for that one so hard. Alright. So a quick look at sideboards. Plows, Endings, Force of Negations. These are the things I'm expecting from my opponents. These Steely Resolves will be good. Now, Leyline on the Void shuts down their combo, which is the combo that can clock us. So, yes, I would like these things. Crop rotation, pretty bad against combo decks. But, what do we take out is the question. I like having our disruptive elements. Do we just go slightly slower? Maybe we get rid of some crop rotations. I like Pithing Needle still. What lands actually do we have that don't do anything? So crop rotation is another way of getting the Bojuka Bog as well though. So that's important. Is the Boseiju useful? Not really. I don't think it's useful here. It is a green source in our deck, though. So it's not entirely free to remove that. The Ghost Quarter was pretty clutch there. Actually, the Boseiju can blow up a Karakas or a Shuko. Not Karakas thing. So the Karakas is the one that doesn't do anything for us here. Sejiri Steppe is potentially useful here. So we've got 6 more things to find. Tricky. This is probably some amount of needles that have got to go, and then a couple of crop rotations. And then on the play we can put some Duresses in, maybe. Alright, we can go a little bit slower, potentially. Let's see what we end up with anyway. This hand is no good. Our opponent's also mulliganed once. This does get us there, eventually. Guess you throw away one of these. Not a big fan of this hand, but it has interaction. Now, whether or not that interaction is going to be good, I don't know. Nomads and Core. Okay, we might just be dying on turn 2 here. Thoughtseize and Duress are not the same card. So what we can do here is we can play Steely Resolve, naming Wizard. Not quite how I intended to use this card. So if we name Wizard here, our opponent can't target their Wizard with Nomads and Core because it's Shroud, not Hexproof. Let's see if they know that. So I've shut their combo off. Now, they are a deck with prismatic endings in, so they can just kill our Steely Resolve and then go off. But we've bought ourselves a turn. A Narcomoeba. Okay, the writing is on the wall here. We need to draw a land. Now, we can play a Dark Depths, so we'd really like to play a spell this turn. So, land, please. You kind of like a land, right? What are we Sylvan Scrying for? Let's cast Sylvan Scrying like this. We're going to get an Urborg. We're going to play our Urborg, and then we're going to Duress our opponent. There's a plow. Okay. So, we just need... So, on our next turn, we can shoot a 4. Thespian stage, a turn after, we can shoot a 4. We can just make the Marit Lage. So, there's a Flood Strangon from our opponent. And our opponent's got a very small clock, and their combo is shut off because of our Steely Resolve. Doing double duty here. Leyline of the Void. Not a million miles away from casting that one. So we're going to play this one out. Then we're going to go get ourselves a little Thespian stage. We can just play out the Leyline of the Void if we feel the need to. That's possibly the safer route, but we'll see. Our opponent's going to have 2 mystery cards in hand after they've gone to their draw step. Probably going to play out this Marsh Flats because we play out the information we already know. Unless they draw a Saga, and that's worth playing. Because they can pivot to a Saga. Okay, so they're pivoting to a Saga beatdown plan. They don't have a Rest in Peace available to them. Not Rest in Peace, a Force of Will, sorry. What I'm talking about Rest in Pieces for. Let's play Vampire Hexmage. This is the one that takes less resources for us. If you want to, we can always remove the counters from the Dark Depths. From the Urza Saga. Not a massive lover of that as a plan. Another Urza Saga. Okay, so they've got Marsh Flats and 1 blank in hand. Well, 1 mystery card. We have first strikes. They're probably not attacking into this. Let's get ourselves a 2020. They draw a plow. No. They have an Narcomoeba to block for a turn with. Oh, okay. The plow doesn't do it here. Narcomoeba goes under the bus. We've seen this little dance before. I have a choice now. Because our opponent is going to make another construct. And then they're going to go and get potentially a Pithing Needle. So I can turn my Thespian stage into a copy of something else. Now I can turn it into a copy of Urza's Saga. But the cost for doing this is that I can't play Not of This World around a daze. So would I rather just go all in with our Marit Lage here? I think that's probably for the best. Because Not of This World counters spells or abilities. We know one of the cards in our opponent's hand is a Marsh Flats. We can definitely get punished here and lose this game still. So this could be an Ether Spell Bomb. Well, I don't think we're going to win an Urza Saga game if we make an Urza Saga. So I think we shouldn't be copying our Thespian stage that way. Now it does give us a second Dark Depths as an option, potentially. Okay, a Shuko. That's fine. Alright, okay, we got it. So we got the 4-1 there. Alright, let's have a little chat about the deck. So, I love this deck and it performed well, but I mistreated it myself in the second round. Against that mono black deck, I had the way of stopping their combo right there and then. But I got greedy trying to see if I could waste their turn and then just hit their Leyline. But as soon as I passed the turn, I said, well, the way we get punished for this is if they have a Doughty Voidwalker. Now, they did have a Doughty Voidwalker. So if we'd have just blown up the Helm, we would have been... We win that game, is what I'm saying, for the first one. The second game, we just lost to Opposition Agent. The third game, we get to bring in Abrupt Decay, but we don't have an answer for their Sudden Edicts. So depending on how many of them they have, we're in trouble. So normally I would say we are unfavoured in the mono-black matchup. So whilst I did make a mistake, I think the 4-1 is probably a fair result at the end of the day, especially on the play, because our opponent can play an Opposition Agent straight up, and then we're kind of in a lot of trouble because we can't get our basics under an Opposition Agent very easily. So we might struggle to get our Abrupt Decays off or get our right colours. So I think, as annoyed I am that I mistreated my beloved deck this way, it worked out in what I think is probably a fair record for it. As you saw, the Steely Resolve tech was incredible this league. So firstly, it let us just have our guy and not have to worry about removal against the initiatives. We get to blank some of the cards in their hand, especially if they're going to mulligan to it. So that was really nice. And against Cephalid Breakfast, it stops them being able to combo. Now that's not necessarily what it's in there for, but when it comes up, boy howdy is it good. So yeah, big fan of Steely Resolve. I think the rest of the sideboard was pretty good. We didn't really face the super scary turn 1 combo decks like your Stormy type things, where we want the Duress. So, you know, that's a matchup that you kind of want to dodge. Now, we do have like 8 Duress effects, but that's quite often not enough against these decks. And even if we can make a Leyline or whatever to stop their echoing Echo Vions, or Force of Vigor some of their artifacts at the right time, that's sometimes also not enough. And the more you do like dilute your deck to try and beat it, the harder it is for you to win as well. So I really don't like those matchups, and we managed to dodge them today, which is why our record's pretty decent. As for the mana base, we didn't get hamstrung by any of the things in our deck there. We didn't get hamstrung by the fact that we couldn't get our colours when we needed them in terms of the lands that we put in our deck. So the one thing that did come up, though, was the Opposition Agent meant that our fetch lands were bad. So that is an important thing to know that can come up. What I will say is you can play just a straight up black-green build with the fast lands from whatever set they come out. So they come into play untapped as long as you've got 3 or less lands, and they tap for black and green. So those are pretty good if you want to run those instead. They're also a pretty budget option, so you can run those and maybe 1 of each basic and 2 Bayou. But again, the ability to have those basics and fetch them out becomes less. So what is the point of having them a bit more? Now, if you have a mana base setup like that, what it does mean, though, is you're not going to take any damage from your own lands. So you might be able to, you know, dodge 1 or 2 points of damage here or there, or multiple if you're playing the Rainbow build with City of Traitors and Mana Confluence or whatever combination of those you've got, you can kind of dodge that. You could also play the land that sacks to draw you a card if you wanted here. I don't think that's good enough, but you could run that and the fast lands if you wanted to play a budget version of black-green. Now, you could just play the Rainbow mana base, which is pretty budget because those Rainbow lands don't cost a lot as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty sure Gemstone Mine was the most expensive one. That's just been reprinted. Now, I could be wrong in that, but it has been reprinted. I don't know how expensive it is, but I imagine they're quite cheap, so you could just go down that route. And this is a very cheap deck for Legacy standards, and in my opinion, it's pretty well positioned right now. It has trouble versus certain things, for sure. So the mono black deck, I think, is a problem, but the real problems are the turn 1 combo decks. Now, I feel meta's got a lot of turn 1 combo decks in. Don't play this deck. Simple as. The general meta online right now and stuff is quite combo heavy because of the initiative people trying to go under it. If you really wanted to try and fix that, you could run Leyline of Sanctity, which can often buy you additional turns. If you're running the Rainbow mana base, you could play Deafening Silence as an answer to those decks. Now, obviously, you have to get that down turn 1, so it's not always great. Or you could play Mindbreak Trap. Now, Mindbreak Trap isn't very good against the Epic Storm right now because they're running Silence as their protection piece. So they cast their Silence and then they do all their stuff and you don't get to really interact. So that's probably not where you want to be. I think the Deafening Silence, if you're in the Rainbow Mana base, is probably the best option for trying to beat those decks. Now, you could just say, I'm going to run Discard and hope for the best, because it's going to be better against the rest of the field. And I think that's a perfectly valid way to approach it. You should never try and play Magic the Gathering where you're trying to beat every deck. If you think, oh yeah, I can beat every deck, then you're deluding yourself, in my opinion. You're going to have bad matchups. Now, quite how bad those matchups depends. Like decks like Delver, for example, they don't have that many really horrible matchups. What they do have is a pretty decent shot at most matchups. There's a reason why it's been the best deck for a while. And it's probably going to get some bans. Might have even had a ban by the time this video goes out, I don't know. But Delver kind of has play against everything, but there's not that many matchups where it's like really, really unfavorable. Really favorable for it. So it doesn't have many like 80-20 matchups, but some decks in Legacy very much have those matchups. So again, it's a bit of preference and stuff. I would also recommend getting better art than this for Sylvan Scrying. I've not seen this art before. I don't like it. So yeah, so this Valentine's Day I played a beloved deck and we did pretty well with it. And honestly, I think compared to the Rainbow deck, maybe this is... The ability to actually have the basics when you have fetch lands is real. And it did come up a couple of times for us. Like we had things where we can play this land and then go off on turn 2 and we don't have to worry about Wasteland. That was really nice. So I definitely think there's a real reason to play this build over the Rainbow decks. More so than I was expecting. And I think we got a better record than we did when we played Rainbow decks last week. So that's pretty good. Anything else to say about this? Maybe you want a 4th Abrupt Decay over the 3rd Force of Vigor. Reason being, it kills the Magus of the Moon and the Opposition Agent, whereas Force of Vigor doesn't, so I think it might slightly edge it. But then again, Force of Vigor has some good utility and is a turn 0 spell sometimes when you need it. So, hard to say. I think Force of Vigor's usefulness sort of waxes and wanes across the format right now. Like this can kill Painter's Servant, for example, but Abrupt Decay can do that uncounterably. And Blue Painter obviously has counter spells, and Red Painter has Pyroblast, and if they have Painter in play, then they can counter your Force of Vigor. So maybe the Abrupt Decay is good, but then Force of Vigor gets to blow up Urza's Saga, which is pretty nice. So you definitely want some number of Force of Vigor. I think this is where you want to look to make your changes. I don't think you want to go down on Graveyard Hate. I think it's just important to have the Graveyard Hate right now. And this is way better than Endurance. I don't think Endurance is good. Although what Endurance does do is shore up some of your other matchups if you bring it in, because it's a creature that can block and kill Opposition Agent and the Magus. If you're really worried about those two cards, though, you can play Echoing Decay, I think it is, which is 1 and a black instant. Target creature and all creatures with the same name get -2/-2 till end of turn. That kills both of those problem creatures. So that's another thing to think about. All right, I think we're done here. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful Valentine's Day League. With this, I guess this card is pretty Valentine's. It looks like it's got like a big pink heart. Maybe that's just its love for Marit Lage and wanting to protect it right there. So, yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Show me some love. Subscribe. I need subscribers. All right. Plug done. And thank you again for watching. Goodbye.